Hi there, welcome to the art department. My name's Belinda. I'm course leader for art. There's about 5 of us in the department that teach art. Essentially there's 2 components to your A-level art. Component 1 is 60% of your grade and component 2 is 40% of your grade. You have 2 teachers that teach you and your lessons are split between those 2 teachers. You've got 4.5 hours teaching time per week. And again, that's divided up into 3 different lessons. You get 5 hours homework a week, which is set in class and also marked in class the following week. So here we have an example of a first year student and the first set of homeworks that are set up until October half term. So they're all given the same brief. So this brief here was to investigate natural forms and replicate them or draw them in a range of different materials. So she's used a whole range of materials. She's used some not looking drawings on tissue paper, she's used some canvas and some tracing paper. That all links to the techniques that we'd be using in class during the first part of the autumn half term. Then they were asked to do some close-up studies in fine liner of textures, man-made and non-man-made textures on the first page. And then we drew them in fine liner and wax and ink, the same textures on the opposing page. Again, looking at textures, they were asked to do some collages using bits of book paper, bits of fabric, some raffia and so on, and manipulate the materials, and they were asked to do detailed drawings of those. Half term, that's usually a study of an artist, so she picked the artist Guy Denning and replicated some of his work and did her own versions of his work. And essentially those set homeworks take you up until October half term. Then you get your mock exam set, which is the theme of journeys, which we've used for a couple of years. And you investigate the theme of journeys, again, looking at different artists, feeding in your own ideas, making annotations, and developing your own line of inquiry. This is a carborundum print. This is cut out of a special card, peeled away, and then printed on the printing press, and so on. And you work towards a final outcome. Again, looking at artists along the way, and then planning your final outcome. So she did a piece on corrugated card of portraiture and buildings, looking at urban deprivation.
Hi, I'm Georgie, I'm one of the art teachers. So in terms of the studios in the classrooms, we've got 2 big art studios. Students are welcome to come in and use the studios in their free lessons. So it's usually quite a buzzy atmosphere in here. We've got lots of students working the whole time. They have access to a print table. We've got screen printing facilities as well. We do usually a screen printing project in the upper 6th year. We have a kiln for ceramics and also access to photography darkroom if anyone wants to use that. This is her personal study in component 1 sketchbook, and she decided to look at the topic of chiaroscuro, and that's looking at how light and dark, and she focused it specifically on figurative work and portraiture. So we encourage a range of different techniques in the book, so lots of different drawing styles and looking at lots of different artists to influence working in different ways. Some of her work from her first year was also added onto this book. So we encourage lots of different printmaking techniques as well. We've got an etching table, we've got lino cuts, she's done some charcoal drawings here. And this took her through to exploring the concept of colour within light and dark, so she started looking into painting techniques and experimenting with acrylics and oils. She eventually started looking at portraits of her family, and then this led to a final outcome at the end of her component 1, where she did a large oil painting of a portrait of her brother.
So in the first half term, your homeworks are quite structured. So you're given a specific homework each week, which everybody follows the same brief. And you do them in your workbook. You take this home every week and it's marked in class the next week. So each teacher will set you that homework in the first half term up until October half term. So you've got some beautiful examples of some observational drawings, You do all sorts of different techniques. You could do a collage homework and then you draw the collages. After that, when we've given you a really, really good grounding in as many different techniques as possible, you are given a mock exam after half term. And then you are free to develop your own ideas more. We use the theme of journeys. We've used that for a few years now. It's a really good theme, and you can interpret that theme in any way that you wish. Okay, so this person here decided to look at portraiture in detail, okay, initially. And then she started to adapt it to the theme of urban environment and urban decay and poverty. So she starts researching artists that would link to that theme. We try and embed artists into your theme all along, all the way through. And again, she explores the theme of her journey into looking at urban poverty. Feeding in artists, doing small artist copies, using many different techniques. In the course, we'll teach you etching, we'll teach you lino cutting, we will teach you loads and loads of drawing techniques, mixed media and so on, some stitching on the machines. You can really interpret the journey theme in any way that you want to do to make it highly personable. And you will have about 8 weeks to do your prep on journeys, and then you do a final outcome. She looked at a Russian artist called Valery Kozlyakov, who paints on cardboard boxes. And again, that linked to the theme of the sort of urban deprivation within using the cardboard, tearing it up, and the links with, she looked at homeless people and so on. Again, you'll write about artists, you'll make annotations in your work, and you'll do a final outcome. So you plan for your outcome, final outcome, and do a bigger version of the final outcome. Towards the end of the first year, or rather midway through the first year, in fact, you will start your component 1, which is your personal study, okay? And that will develop in a larger book, an A3 book. And again, with your personal study, you'll have a lot of guidance. You'll come to a decision with your teacher about what theme to develop within your personal study. Okay, so you've had lots of practice at developing your own ideas and your own line of inquiry. So then you need to decide a theme that you will do for your personal study. Remember, your personal study is 60% of your grade, okay? So this person, for example, decided to investigate chiaroscuro in art. How does light and dark influence portraiture? Okay, and this is your A3 book, remember, okay? And you start thinking about how you can investigate your theme. It doesn't have to be portraiture. If you're interested in architecture, you could do an architecturally based personal study. If you're interested in more manipulation of materials and abstract art, you can investigate materials more and look into abstraction and mixed media and sewing. This person's personal study was actually called How can Contemporary Art Promote an Interaction with an Audience? So you are free to develop your own line of inquiry within your personal study. And it really is an emphasis on your line of inquiry. Again, you get lots and lots of teacher guidance with this. Some of this is done as homework, some of this is done in class, okay? As you go through, you'll notice that there are annotations, there are little bits of writing, there are many, many different techniques again used, experimental ideas. The books are very full and busy. We really want to emphasise, having the pages really, really full, very vibrant. She eventually starts to take, after investigating many artists and techniques, looking at light and dark, some contemporary artists, some old masters, for example, she starts to take some of her own photographs of friends and family, does her own versions of portraiture from them. Then eventually, coming towards the end of the personal study, she starts to look at photographs of her brother. Again, she takes images of her brother in different lighting conditions, and she produces her final outcome of her brother as a large painting. So within your personal study, you've got all the investigation, you're looking at your artist, you also have an essay within there, and that is approximately 3,000 words, and that is well researched, referencing artists, analysing artists' work, talking about how those artists have affected what you're doing. bibliography, and so on. Okay, so that is your personal study. That is worth 60% of your grade. When that is completed in the second year, you're given your practical exam, which is 40% of your grade. That's component 2. That is set by the exam board. You'll have a choice of questions, and you do your own response to the question. We normally use a smaller book for the component 2. So for example, we've got this one here. She went for much more this is her exam book. She went for much more of a decorative, illustrative approach with the exam. This is a different person. Again, researching artists, being influenced by different artists, a bit of Matisse here, lots of different materials. She planned a final outcome. Again, annotations, lots of different potential outcomes. Eventually she did a series of large paintings. So this is her component 2 with the book, and I think it was a triptych, 3 large paintings that she did as her final pieces.